Hi beautiful souls, it's Tan back here on this Astrology, Human Design and Gene Keys channel for you with a video today talking about Lilith. What this particular entity means in your natal chart and how to find her in your natal chart, but most importantly, how you can practically be bringing Lilith back into your life and into the world. Because in my last video that I made on the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, I talked about how there are beliefs surrounding the fact that the reintegration of Lilith into our society again can bring redemption or can really make the world a better place. And so that's going to be like one of the main parts of this video, is how to practically do that in your life. Okay, so let's jump right into it. How do you find Lilith in your natal chart? So I like to look at 3 Liliths in the natal chart together because they all represent different parts of the story or the understanding, the mythology of Lilith. And so I look at the 3 Liliths, which is asteroid Lilith, true Lilith, and the Waldemat Lilith, to kind of represent the dark and divine feminine within all of us. So if in this video I say feminine, I don't really mean the biologically female archetypes. Or if I say masculine, I don't mean biologically male bodies. I mean that in all of us, we have a part of us that is masculine and that is feminine. And when we come into relationships with another individual, there's going to be both masculine and feminine roles being played out. Depending on what type of relationship you're in, is it homosexual, is it heterosexual relationship? In a heterosexual relationship, we do tend to see that the biologically female person is going to play the more feminine role some of the times, but we're going to change roles back and forth. If this is a homosexual type of relationship, then it really depends on the individuals involved when and how much each individual is going to play the feminine or the masculine role. Something to keep in mind there. So yes, I like to look at the 3 Liliths because they represent the dark feminine, the divine feminine. I like to look at 3 because I feel that together they represent the Trinity, the triquetra symbol, the maiden, the mother, and the crone, which is the 3 feminine aspects and principles. That's why I feel it makes so much sense to look at Lilith in this way. And so if you want to turn on Lilith in your natal chart, I highly recommend that you go to astro.com, you scroll down to the part where it says like you can adjust aspects and click the part where it says turn on aspects to all objects, so you do see aspects being made to Lilith, and then set the orbs to about 70% so we don't have really wide orbs flying around. And then go to the very bottom where it says additional objects. In the manual box where you can manually select other asteroids and things, type in 1181, which is the asteroid Lilith. This is the actual asteroid body of Lilith that's really physically floating in the sky. And I would use H13, which is the true Lilith. And this is not a particular body, but it's an average point of the dark parts of the sky. And I would also turn on H58, which is the Waldemat Lilith. And of course, as I go throughout this video, I will look at what the different Liliths mean. I will tell you what the different Liliths mean. But so the way I like to look at Lilith is that aspects made to Lilith, specifically to your personal planets. Okay, so that's the sun all the way to like Jupiter, even Saturn. And I would keep the orbs for hard aspects to Lilith, which is the conjunction, the square, and the opposition to like 4 to 5 degrees orb, especially to the sun and the moon. The orbs can be pretty wide for that. For the easier aspects, like the trine and sextile, we'd keep the orbs probably as like 3 degrees, and I would rarely even look at Lilith in conjunction or semi-sextiles unless it's like an exact 0 degrees orb. Then I would think there's something there. That's how I would look at Lilith, because whatever Lilith is aspecting, energies, planets have energy. So that planet and with Lilith coming into contact, there will be an energy exchange there, specifically coming from the planet. And so yeah, before we even get started, comment below what aspects are made to your Liliths, any one of the 3 Liliths. You can have a look at all 3. Is it your sun, moon, Venus, Mars? You know, what's going on there? What are the aspects? What's the orb? Because that's going to show which part of your psychology is being impacted by Lilith, and either finding it hard or easy. And easy doesn't mean that it's working out great. Whether that's hard or easy, with or without awareness, being impacted by the energies of Lilith, the archetypes of Lilith. Because if Lilith is aspecting your sun in any way, then your ego is really being impacted by Lilith. And Lilith really has a lot to do with ego. And you'll find out more about that as I go throughout this video. If it's the moon, that's really a past conditioning, a habit that's being impacted by Lilith. If it's Venus, it's your sense of self-esteem, your beauty, seduction. If it's Mars, that's your sexuality, your energy, how you're going to take action that's being impacted by Lilith, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm gonna now go on and talk about the story of Lilith, and I want to, I would highly recommend that you guys watch this part of the video as well, because the version of the story of Lilith that I'm going to tell you is going to be based on what I've learned from Ohad Pele, who is a shaman that I truly admire. I attended his workshops during the Tantra festivals, a few of them, and it was just really great to interacting with him in some ways, and he's like the real deal. He tells it like it is, and he's got a lot of insights that resonates with my truth, shall I say. So therefore I really admire this shaman, Ohad Pele. Lilith, the mythology of Lilith, really stems all the way from the Sumerians. Then it's been transferred down to Jewish traditions, and it is, of course, part of the same story as the story of Adam and Eve. So, of course, Lilith was the first wife of Adam. She was there before Eve was. And at that time, God, shall we say, or the creator of our universe, has made men and women, so biologically male, biologically female, equal. So this can mean our masculine and our feminine equal at the start. They were both created from soil, and so everything they had was equal. Lilith and Adam, they were created equal, and they were husband and wife living together in Eden. But as they begin to live together, they had some fights here and there. And one of the main fights they would have consistently was with regards to who was going to be on top while they're having sex. And of course, although both are created equally, men are, of course, biologically male body is always going to be, it tends to be more, most of the time, stronger than the biologically female body, of course, for various different scientific reasons. But so therefore, Adam would assume that he, of course, should be on top because he's stronger than Lilith. And of course, Lilith thought that that was not fair. To be fair, no matter how strong or how weaker you are, you should have an equal amount of domination and submission, being on top and being under, being below and being above. So Adam, of course, wouldn't really allow that to happen. And so Lilith just wouldn't take it anymore, and she flew away somewhere, and Adam became very lonely when Lilith wasn't there anymore, so he decided to contact the 3 angels. And the 3 angels came to Adam and told him that they will help Adam find Lilith, and God said that, yeah, the 3 angels should go out and try to find where Lilith was, and if you do find her, try to bring her back to Adam, but don't force her to come back. Don't play games, don't manipulate her so that she would come back. Ask her to come back, but give her the free will to choose whether she wants to come back or not. This is what God said. So the 3 angels went looking for Lilith and found her, this is according to Ohad Pele, on the beach somewhere with a suntan, and she's drinking from a coconut, and she's going for a swim. And the 3 angels went over and said, Lilith, we would like you to come back to Adam. He's very lonely. But Lilith, of course, said, I don't want to go back. I'm just enjoying my life here, my freedom, my independence. I mean, I can do whatever I want without Adam. But of course, but the angels, didn't want that. And so Lilith said, okay, I have to tell you something as well. I made love to somebody else. And so, in ancient times, if a woman has already made love to a different man from her husband, then it's kind of sinful. The husband wouldn't really take her back. And so the angel said, who did you make love to? And Lilith said, I made love to the demon. And I've also already have kids as well, 1,000 of them. And so the angel said, okay, fine, but if you don't come back, you must leave Adam and his new wife, who was going to be Eve, you must leave their children alone. But Lilith said, yeah, but did you know that one of the reasons why God created me was so that I would be the bad girl anyways, and so therefore I would be in my, prophecy, be harming Adam and his new wife's kids anyways. And so the angel said, if you don't come back, so they're kind of like making negotiations here and there. They're kind of going around and around, but at the end of the day, I mean, whatever the angels were saying, they still want Lilith to come back, right? And so the angel says, fine, but you know what, Lilith, if you really don't come back, there's going to be another condition. Because if your prophecy means that you're going to harm Adam and his new wife's kids, then we are going to be harming your kids every day. We're going to kill one of your 1,000 babies every day for 1,000 days. And Lilith says, fine, you can do that. You can kill my kids. I'm fertile. You can see I can have 1,000 babies. I can have more. Go ahead and kill them. I'm not going back to Adam. So we can see here that the angels kind of didn't allow Lilith her own free will in the first place. When Lilith said no, they continued to try to get her to come, to try to persuade her, to manipulate her. They went against God's orders. And so Lilith then began to use some tactics back to the angels, by saying she was going to harm the children of Adam and his new wife. Although, we don't know if she would really do that, but it could just be seen as a comeback. But also, the fact that Lilith just totally gave up and said, you can just kill my kids, is saying something about her character as well, which we're going to talk a little bit more later. Okay, so after that, the angels returned back and said, no, we couldn't bring Lilith, sorry. So God decided to create another wife for Adam, who was Eve. And this time he created the second wife to be a little bit inferior to Adam. He created the second wife of Adam to be happy to be second. So you see, with Lilith and Adam, they both wanted to be first. They both wanted to be equal. But so God created the second wife then to be okay with being second, to following Adam's orders. That was Eve. And that was considered, according to kind of like ancient beliefs, that this is one of the reasons why patriarchy, became something that was going on in the world. Let's go back to the question of how did Lilith create 1,000 babies? The thing is that she didn't create 1,000 babies with just the demon. What she did, according to mythologies, was that she went into the dreams of men and even women and seduced them in their dreams. When men were dreaming, they were fantasizing about Lilith, and they were, getting off on that and ejaculating 1,000 babies to be born, but they were all born from the womb of Lilith, from her pregnancy. So she was that fertile, but she was also considered a fantasy woman, the woman that men would dream about. The sexy, seductive type. So what happened in our society, when people heard this story of Lilith, and I don't know how many times it's been told and how it's been told, but people began, when they have children, they began to inscribe the names of the 3 angels on the child's crib to protect the child from Lilith because of this story. So we can see how Lilith became demonized or considered a demon by the society because of the way that maybe the story was told or it's been perceived, because of the creation of Eve. So we can see there's like a split in our society, especially when it comes to the feminine principles, that if we have Eve, Lilith must be demonized. And Lilith is the dark feminine, Eve is the light feminine. And if there's a lot of, appreciation for the light feminine in our society because of patriarchy, then of course we must shun the dark feminine. That's kind of like the paradigm or the mindset that we have here. However, the ancient Kabbalah said that Lilith is not a demon. She's just the dark feminine, but people view her as a demon. And one of the reasons that society views her as a demon also is because it's the masculine, the men, shall we say, that were afraid of the feminine archetypes, the feminine principles, having their freedom, having that equality, because of the ego, the strong masculine ego that is coming at play here. But you see, although the light feminine, or Eve, she does have good qualities about her because she is the one who is more, shall we say, receptive and passive. She is the one who's going to make sure there is peace through, harmony. And she's the one who is willing to be in a more serving role. And of course, these roles are definitely important. But Eve is the woman, the female archetype that is more intelligent, more independent and powerful. So that's why we have these two, dark feminine and light feminine. And part of the dark feminine is that when you want to reintegrate Lilith back into the society, you have to deal with her. So if we think about the negotiations that was made between the angels and Lilith, there was this going back and forth. How do I deal with Lilith? How do we make this negotiation? So there, if you have Lilith like strongly placed in your chart, you're going to be somebody that people, especially the more masculine archetypes, when you're using your feminine Lilith archetypes, they're going to feel like, oh, I have to deal with her. How do I deal with her? What are these conditions that she's setting? Like, what are these like negotiations that we're having here? That kind of energy can be at play. Okay, so let's have a look further at the three Liliths and what they really mean. So Lilith and Eve, like I said, Lilith represents the wild, dark, feminine. Eve represents the domesticated, light, feminine. However, both Lilith and Eve are part of the same entity because Adam and Lilith were created from the same soil. So therefore, Lilith and Adam are part of each other. And Eve was created from Adam himself. So if Eve is created from Adam himself, then Eve and Lilith are actually created from the same soil. So they're a part of the same entity. And the masculine, Adam, is also part of the feminine. So it's all really much linked. And so therefore, if we're just talking about the feminine aspects, then Eve and Lilith are part of the same entity, like the dark phases of the moon and the light phases of the moon, like the new moon, which is darker, and the full moon, which is lighter, brighter. So that's what we have to first understand about Lilith, is that when we do talk about Lilith, look at Lilith in your chart, we can even sometimes see that whatever Lilith is aspecting, if it's aspecting another planet, the planet that Lilith is aspecting, sometimes you may see the Eve of that planet being played out more, and then the Lilith is coming in to influence the Eve of that planet. So yes, we need a balance of both Lilith and Eve, but like I talked about previously, how the patriarchal system has been in fear of the darker feminine, the Lilith, because of the way that she was viewed as a demon when she really isn't. The asteroid Lilith itself represents the phase of Lilith's story when she has that struggle with Adam regarding who's going to be on top and who's going to be on the bottom. So it's the Lilith that first gets struck with this idea of fairness and equality, and strives to create fairness and equality between the masculine and the feminine, and in all areas of life. That's the asteroid Lilith, 1181. Now, when Lilith begins to flee, this more sexual side of Lilith comes to play through Waldemat Lilith, that's age 58. This is the Lilith that is searching for sexual freedom and sexual independence at a kind of an extreme level, at the level where she would say, kill my children, that's fine, because I want my freedom. So this is the darkness, having that, even that aspect of it even being a little bit harmful. The harmful side can come out through Waldemat Lilith. And this part of Lilith is also the part that goes into men's dreams and fantasies and impregnates and gets men to ejaculate and gets herself impregnated. So it's a really fertile part of Lilith as well. So there's fertility in the body, there's sexual freedom and wildness. But because of Lilith being a fantasy part of men and women, this part of Lilith represents as well the sexy fantasy woman that a lot of us may, especially some men, may have in their head that they would really like to have in the bedroom, but not really have as a wife, if that kind of makes sense, because there's a lust for her, there's a desire for her in the bedroom to satisfy some kind of raw sexual lust, but she would be really hard to deal with as a wife on a daily basis, so they wouldn't really want her as a wife, but there's definitely the fact that she can meet those raw desires. So true Lilith, which is age 13, what I've noticed about this one is that it becomes the question of how do we balance Lilith and Eve now? How can we have a feminine or a woman or a female or the feminine aspects being both the wife and the sexy seductress? How can we merge the split, bridge this split to have non-duality? So to have, for example, a sexy, seductive wife who can always meet her husband's fantasies, but is also willing to be a little bit domesticated. How do we have both of this within one, balanced and equal? Can you imagine what a mom would be like if she was also sexy, radiant and independent, intelligent, willing to speak up for herself, but she was also a really good mom and a really good wife and can tend to other people's needs and create harmony in the home? I mean, isn't that what kind of every man or woman who plays a more masculine role in a gay relationship would really actually be fantasizing for, if we can bridge this split? So when we're looking at the archetype of Lilith, after everything that I've talked about so far with regards to the story and the interpretations there, we're talking about the dark feminine, right? And so what does the dark feminine actually mean? I want to go into this a little bit deeper to kind of clarify, like, what do people mean when they talk about dark feminine and Lilith? A dark feminine type always has the motive of good intentions behind her actions, but her actions are going to come from a place of love from the dark feminine, but the way that she's going to carry out acts of love may be a little bit tougher, meaning that she will not be afraid to tell you the truth about who you are. If you are misbehaving, let's say, in a relationship with her, she will cut off your ego. She will say, hey, you're doing something here that's not giving equality in this relationship, and so take a good hard look at yourself and how you got your ego so wrapped up in this particular situation. And if you don't change, if you don't get your ego out of the situation, then I'm gonna leave you. So the dark feminine is not gonna really like sit around and complain and wait and wait for like 10 years so that the partner that she's with eventually changes and gives the equality. If something crosses her principles, she's gonna say it, and she will even, not handle any conditions that you're gonna give or excuses that you're gonna make. And she doesn't make excuses herself either. It's like, you've crossed my principles. This is not an equal situation right here. Change or I'm leaving. That's the love that's coming from the dark feminine. She's doing this out of love because she loves you. She knows that you can be better than you are. She honors your highest potentials, but she's also not willing to stand around if you can't see those potentials within yourself, and if you're gonna be like, and if you don't see those principles in yourself, but you also step over her boundaries and her principles, then she's not gonna have it. But you can always sense, a woman who is embodying the dark feminine, there will be an innocence about her, even though the things she say may be truthful and cutting, but you can see underneath that she's still got innocence and purity and definitely love underneath all of what she's saying. It's never coming from her ego, and it's never coming from her wanting to be superior or to win over you. It's always coming from the best of intentions. It's just that the way she does it is kind of gonna cut you off, cut your head off, shall we say. That's what Ohad Pele says, cut your head off. So her vagina, if you look at how fertile Lilith is, the feminine aspects of her is like a vagina that's going to be opening, and she will swallow and eat you up whole when you are associating with her, so that you can be transformed by cutting off your ego. She's going to take you in, do what she wants to do with you, take out your ego, and then you become a blossoming flower afterwards. And a man, a husband, or in a gay relationship, whoever's playing the more masculine role will, if they can accept this darker feminine parts, they will say, thank you, Lilith. Thank you, dark feminine, for making me a better person. Thank you for cutting off my ego and making me a better person and bringing equality into this relationship. But the masculine part who doesn't embrace the dark feminine is either going to try to control the dark feminine by abusing her even more, or he's going to run away. He's going to be like, whoa, I can't handle this. This is way too much. I'm out of here. So there's a bit of that cowardice coming in to a masculine part or principle that hasn't yet fully embraced the dark feminine and can only handle the light or the feminine or the Eve, shall we say. So we can even say with regards to this that the dark feminine is somewhat of a shaman. There's an inner shaman within the darker feminine because of the way that she will transform you, she will purify you, shall we say, through whichever means she has to employ. Okay, so guys, now I want to talk about how we can reintegrate Lilith back into the world to really make some progress with regards to things that, issues and situations that are not working, shall we say, in our society. So with regards to what I've said so far, Lilith really has that theme surrounding marriage, children, and of course sexuality and relationships in general. And so Lilith can be reintegrated to change the world because Lilith really addresses the root causes of a majority of the problems that we see in the world, which is the way we were raised in our childhood, the way that we have or have not expressed our sexuality. And this is why Lilith is considered a rebel and a little bit taboo, because when we look at what we see on the surface, if we look at astrology, if we look at the 10th house, we look at the government, for example, or we look at the 11th house, we look at communities that we build, whether that's going to succeed or not has its roots back at the 4th house, which is opposite of the 10th, and the 5th house, which is opposite of the 11th. The 5th house rules our inner child. The 4th house rules our home, our childhood, and the core of who we are. And they're opposite to the 11th and the 10th house. So if we try to solve problems in the world with regards to looking at just the systems and how the system is not working, and things that have to be changed at the level of the 11th and the 10th house, it'll never really make changes, because if there's something rotting or corrupted at the root level, at the home life, at the inner child stages of our development, the root of the tree is already rotting. No matter how much you try to prune the leaves of it, cut off the branches of it, if the tree were to grow back, it would still be rotting because the root has rotten. And that is what Lilith addresses. Reintegrating Lilith back to the society helps us to take care of what has been rotting for centuries, for ages in our society. So the first issue that I want to address is going to be Lilith and sexuality, and how we can handle now sexuality better when we fully understand and embrace Lilith. When it comes to Lilith and sexuality, it comes to this idea of know thyself, like really know thyself. And I think it's even really interesting that, like, even in the gene keys, for example, if you get your hologenetic profile, you can see that your deepest purpose at the very bottom of your chart is colored red and green. Red being part of the Venus sequence, which is love, sexuality, relationships, and green being your external life's work. So the frequency at which you're operating with regards to sexual energy and relationships directly affects your external life's work. This is something that's a really amazing wisdom with regards to, like, these different systems, that, like, if you're using it correctly, we can really get to the bottom of that, you know? Okay, and so know thyself, yes, know thyself sexually. And this means, and okay, and what I'm about to say here, I do a kind of, like, I feel like it may emotionally touch some of you guys, so just a little caution there. But I want to talk about the issues of cheating in a marriage and in a relationship, and why that cheating behavior, having affairs, is something that is coming from a sexual dishonesty on both partners, and dishonesty in the intimacy, or a lack of intimacy from both partners. Although, yes, the partner who is doing the cheating can be, you know, considered as the one who is acting on the immoral behaviors, who is causing the immoral behaviors there. But we also have to take into consideration that the partner who is being cheated on has a role to play in this as well, with regards to their darker feminine. Because, like we talked about, how Eve is the light feminine, the domesticated wife, and Lilith is the fantasy sexual person for all of men, the mistress even. And so if, for example, you are playing a feminine role in a relationship and you only play the Eve role, you haven't embraced your darker feminine. And we all have this. We all have a sensual, sexual, lustful, wild sexual side within all of us. And if we don't play out that sexual side of us, our partner can feel like there's something missing in the relationship, like they are still longing for that sexual, sensual, wild fantasy feminine that, you know, you actually have it within you, the person who's playing the feminine role, the wife role. You have both, but you're not embracing the darker side, and so something's missing there. And that is one of the causes of affairs at the bottom of it, at the root of it. Or if it's not an affair, then it's a sexual frustration that happens in a relationship or a marriage that, without us really knowing it, subconsciously bleeds into other issues in a relationship and in a marriage. And Ohad Pele said that, can you imagine what the people in, you know, the politicians or in leadership positions would be like if they could wake up every morning and have an amazing orgasm with a partner that they fully love every morning? They would come to work wanting to do good for the world, wanting to spread love, wanting to spread that ecstasy. But without knowing it, when they are waking up frustrated sexually every day, I mean, sexual energy is energy. And waking up with that frustrated energy or sexual energy every day, they're bringing that frustration into the work. Even if it makes you hard to deal with, when it comes to your sexuality, you have to know what it is that you are made of. Are you polygamous or are you monogamous? Because if you are polygamous and your partner is monogamous, there's a conversation that has to be had there. And these harder conversations is true intimacy in a relationship. So can you have that intimacy with your partner? Or let's say if you are somebody who, is into the romance side of sexual relating, then needing to be, wanting to be swooned and to have beauty and romance, while your partner is a more, just do it kind of person, just really raw, then are you going to be open to having that kind of intimate conversation with your partner? Because that requires a lot of courage to be able to come to that point with another person. But in order to do that, you really have to know thyself, know thy sexuality first. To have that, satisfying energy exchange with another person. Because a broken home, whether that's because of a divorce, because there's cheating, there's affairs, or because the husband, because the marriage partners still live together, even though there is cheating, there is affairs, and there's that tension going on in the home, there's fights going on, or maybe there's just intense energies altogether because there's no satisfying sex life there. The person that is being affected are your kids, if you have kids. And so children are our future. Whether they will turn out to be amazing leaders, creative leaders, or abusive leaders and manipulative leaders, that starts with the environment in the home, and that starts with the parents working through their intimate lives together first. Okay, so that's Lilith and sexuality. Lilith and children. So that's the other thing that we want to talk about here. We can see that when Lilith had 1,000 kids, she would choose her independence over her kids, and so they all had to be killed. And so the real question here, when we get to the root of Lilith and children, is that when it comes to dark feminine, when are you really ready to have kids? What are your paradigms about kids, and are you being conditioned by something outside of yourself that's pressuring you to have kids when you're not ready? Do you want to have a child but your partner doesn't, but yet you still remain in a relationship? If Lilith, let's say that, the dark feminine finds out that her husband doesn't want to have kids and she does, what do you think the dark feminine would do? She would say, okay, that's the end of our relationship. I'm independent, I don't need you. Because we don't have the same values. How can we be together? If she doesn't want to have kids and her partner wants to have kids, what do you think the dark feminine will do? She'll say, okay, well, I can't be in this relationship because we're both not going to be happy. Where's it even going to go? I'm independent, I gotta go, I still love you, but I just can't be here. But if you're not embracing the dark feminine, we can have a situation where maybe you don't have that intimate conversation, or maybe you're not honest about whether you do want to have kids or not, and your partner's not honest about whether they do want to have kids or not. And then when you do have kids, because of societal pressures, one partner's in it, the other's not, or both partners not in it anymore. And the other thing is, is really simple: is have you planned your finances clearly? Are you financially able to raise a kid, or are you having a kid in a tough financial situation because of societal pressures? Have you taken the time to really get to know your partner, or are you jumping into this because of some personal needs to fulfill your own needs to have kids, without really letting your partner open up to what they really want? Or again, is it societal pressures? And so, because again, children are going to be our future, whether they are going to be amazing leaders or whether they're going to be manipulative, abusive leaders, that also depends on what's going on in the home life. And of course, we can also say that even if you have a broken home, some children can still grow up to be absolutely amazing, right? But then again, that doesn't mean that the parents should go and make it harder for the kids, because those people who have had broken homes and who have come out to be like amazing, wonderful people, they've had to face a lot in their lives. They've had to bite through a lot. And so as a parent, what role, what responsibilities can you take to make sure that your kids are not gonna have that 50-50% chance of not knowing whether they're gonna make it and they're gonna be able to bite through to the end or not? Kind of like, just taking responsibility on your part in the best way that you can, by being really honest, by really cutting through to the core of what your desires are. And sometimes you have to cut the other person's ego off, or cut your own ego off in the process. And the last theme that I want to talk about here is Lilith and independence, not codependent. So I feel like when we're talking about Lilith and sexuality and Lilith and children, it's the codependent part of us that keeps us in a situation where we raise future generations, or even within ourselves, that are going to continue to not embrace the dark feminine, or are going to continue to be like corrupted leaders, who are going to become abusers in the future. This is coming from the root of codependency. And so we know that codependency is not in Lilith's game. She's a truly independent woman. And so codependency, let me just clarify the definition of it first. So codependency is to continue to enable a particular partner's bad behaviors by something that you do that continues to enable that to happen with another person. That's codependent behavior. Whether you are still officially married, or officially in a relationship, or your friends, in friendships there can be codependent behaviors as well, is to not be Lilith, is to not cut their ego off and say, you gotta stop this right now, otherwise I'm out of here. You don't say that, that's codependent. Or you say that, but you don't act on it, that's still codependent. So you gotta say it and you gotta act on it. You gotta make sure that people, really kind of don't step over your boundaries and don't step over your principles, and you don't enable them to continue abusive behaviors, continue toxic behaviors. You are independent by yourself. You're sitting on the beach like Lilith is and getting a tan and just drinking coconut juice, right? And yet there's so many women, it's mainly women that I'm seeing, but also men, or in any kind of relationship, even in a gay relationship, there's still one partner who are being abused. Sometimes it's like domestic violence, and they still remain with that partner because of codependency. And there's really something to think about here. If you do have kids together, now it's really thinking about the future and what your kids are going to grow up to become. Will they be better people because you are with your partner and they are still, on the surface everything looks fine, and you feel like your kids are not going to sense that there's something going on underneath the surface, but eventually it's going to blow up? Or would it be better now then to split from your partner and try to raise your kids in the best way possible? I guess there's a discernment here as to what may be the best outcome, but at the end of the day, we, with the idea of the dark feminine, we still want to be able to at least be honest and speak the truth and act on the truth and act on our principles when it need be. Okay, and before we finish off, if you are, for example, not in a relationship, not married, and you kind of want to just be independent and alone for a while, how can you integrate Lilith back into our society? So first of all, when it comes to this topic, any kind of relationship that you have, it doesn't have to be a marriage, it can be with your family members, it can be with your friends, it can be with your colleagues. We can still address the idea of codependency here. Like I said, even with friends, you can still have a codependent relationship, or even with your parents, you can still have, or family members, you can still have a codependent relationship there. And so how can you give love to another? By speaking the truth, by standing up for your principles, because that doesn't only give love to them, but it gives love to the world and to the future of, humanity as well. And so also with regards to, if you are not in a relationship, getting intimate and sexual with yourself, there's always a sensual, sexual side of you that you can always explore, even if you're not in a relationship. And that can be something that's really fun there as well, so that, if you were to enter into a relationship in the future, for example, what would, you would know what your sexual desires really are. But I think at the same time, there's something to think about here with regards to well, why not? Why would you not want to be very close and intimate with just one other person, even if it's for a short period of your life, and see what comes out of that, see what comes out of that intimate relating, whether the Lilith parts of you, the darker feminines of you, will be at play or not. If you are feeling like you are super independent, and because there's this quote that says super independence means that you still have really unhealed a trauma that's really going on inside of you. Because if you can't really intimately connect with anybody at a physical, soul merging type of a level where you really come out with regards to your dark feminine, there's something to be said there where it could even be harder for you to access that dark feminine part of you, because the easiest way to access it is through a close intimate relating. That you may be putting up a wall, you may be having unhealed wounds that you're trying to protect by not getting close to another person. And so, I don't know, that's just something to think about there, I feel. And also when it comes to men, the masculine, or in a gay relationship, the more masculine person, when you are faced with someone who, let's say in a relationship, who is kind of displaying their dark feminine, their Lilith to you, one of the, ways to embrace that is to say thank you to them, is to be opened and see objectively what the other person is trying to bring to the table. And yes, get your ego out of the way. Say thank you for telling me what your deepest sexual desires and fantasies are, because I find that is super, super attractive to me. Now I feel like you're not just the good, domesticated person for me, but you also, now I can feel your feisty sexual side within you. And now I don't want anything else. I just want all of you now, because you're willing to open that up to me. Thank you so much. I'm not afraid to go all the way with you. Thank you for letting me know that you want to have kids, or thank you for letting me know that you don't want to have kids. And now we can proceed with some objectivity with regards to what we should be doing next. Thank you for standing up to me when I have done something abusive. I am now going to change. I'm going to cut my ego off, and I'm not going to do that again. Or thank you for standing up to me when I was being abusive to you. I now have to let you go, because I'm going to look inwards, and I'm going to really try to transform myself and let you be free while I am in this process of self-transformation. So that's the way that, the masculine parts of us can help to receive the Lilith within another person, or even within ourselves. Okay guys, so that's going to be my interpretation of Lilith. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button below if you haven't. If you have, thank you very much for coming along, watching my videos. I do astrology readings combined with human design and the gene keys. Do check out my services on my website. And yes, Happy New Year 2021, everybody. I feel like this is the first video that's come out this year. So yes, Happy New Year. Let's make this the year of embracing our dark feminine. Okay, bye.